guys with me? This is Brews and Boxing. I'm your host, Filthy Rich. Joining me as always, Mr. Judge Jimmy James. How you doing, Judge?
I am good today. We probably won't touch on this, and maybe we will, probably not. But Mick Conlan fights this weekend at a weird time, like 1 PM or something like that, maybe 4 PM on ESPN. Give it a show. It's gonna be a good show.
Yeah, I'm a big Mick Conlan guy. Look, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and all that good stuff so we can blow up big and bring more stuff to you guys. Got some Brews and News today, breaking down the 154 division. Before we do all that, should we toast it up and have one for the team?
I'm gonna crack a brew.
All right, crack it open. Judge, this one's for you.
There you go,
Let's have
Rich.
a good show.
One more to you too there, Raider Live.
You too, Raider Live. All right, so Brews and News time. We touch on the latest news topics going on in the world of boxing. Our first story today, ESPN's Mike Coppinger is reporting that Shakur Stevenson and Jamel Herring have an agreement in place to get it on in either late October or early November. James, my question for you, is this the fight you want to see these two guys do, or should they be fighting other opponents?
Well, Rich, that is a good question. I honestly don't know who else Herring would really pair up against after he won the title from Frampton and essentially ending his career. Definitely didn't see that coming. Thought Frampton was going to win that fight, but Herring definitely had something, showed some gut and knocked him out. So for him to fight Shakur Stevenson, I think that's probably a good big name fight for Herring. As far as Stevenson being the one to fight Herring, I think Stevenson just wants to get a belt. I think he really wants to fight a higher contender at 130, and he just wants a belt, and that's the only way he's going to get it. I think after his last fight, he stated, like, once I get this belt from Herring, let's go. I don't remember who he was calling out, but he called out somebody. I want to say Virgil Ortiz, but that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But he called out somebody, and it was 100% like, wow, that's what he wants. That's what he wants to do. He wants to keep moving up. He's at that time now. He's no longer a prospect. Now he's a force. He is, I believe, like one of the toughest guys to hit by CompuBox status. So I'm gonna, take that for what it is. But I mean, we've all seen him fight. He definitely is someone like that. So I think it'll be an entertaining fight. I think it's a good fight for Herring. Stevenson, I think he could probably find a better fight, but he's got a belt. He's got to get something on the resume to get a bigger fight. So that's probably my take on that.
Yeah, I tend to agree with all of that. I think something with Herring that comes to mind before he won this title from Frampton. I mean, I think for sure, I don't remember our predictions on this, but before that Herring fight, before the Frampton fight, Herring was squeezing out victories. Some of the fights I thought he barely won. I don't know how he got the nod. At the end of the day, he got the nod, and I guess that's all that matters. He ends up fighting Frampton, which I thought Frampton would probably be the favorite. He ends up beating Frampton. I think he knocked Frampton down in that fight where, Frampton's career was, he eventually called it quits. But with Herring, there's still flaws in his game. And I know I've touched on this before. When you get that title, sit on it for a little bit, because the last thing you want to do is lose it your very next fight. You don't want to be like, I remember when I believe it was Kane who won the world title at like WrestleMania, and the very next night on Raw, he lost it. So I think he was a world champion for about 24 hours. Herring does not want that. And if I'm Herring's team, I don't want his first title defense to be a fight where he is most likely going to lose. And fighting Shakur Stevenson, he is most likely going to lose. So in Herring's case, I would say play around with another fighter, defend that belt. I'm not saying duck Stevenson. you're not going to have a choice when it comes to Stevenson. You're both on Top Rank. It's going to be an easy fight to make. I don't know where the other belts are, but that fight is inevitable. On Shakur Stevenson's side, Shakur's been waiting for this. I feel bad for the guy. I have no beef with him going after Jamel Herring just so he can get a title and bring that bargaining chip to the table. So on Shakur Stevenson's side, yes, he should want any belt he can get. This is the easiest fight to make. I don't know if unifying is something he's really has his heart set on doing, but you get one belt, good. You can move up. This is the belt. This is the easiest one to get because it is Top Rank, and Herring has flaws in his game. And then on Herring's side, I think he should sit on that belt. I'm not saying dodge the man, but defend it a couple times and then, gracefully hand it off to Shakur where it's going to end up anyways.
Yeah. Right. Real quick before we move on.
Yeah,
it was Oscar Valdez is who he was calling out. That's the fight that he wanted to do. So I just wanted to make sure I corrected that because I said Virgil Ortiz. It wasn't Ortiz. It was Oscar Valdez. My bad. That's who he's calling out after this Herring fight when he has a belt. So.
Yeah, and even with Valdez, because he beat Burchelt. I thought it was Valdez. I don't know why I didn't say that one, but Burchelt, they're both on Top Rank. Burchelt just came off a loss. I don't know. Maybe Shakur fights Burchelt to let Herring sit on that belt, or maybe Herring fights Burchelt so he can fight. But I think Burchelt beats Herring, man. I'll be honest with you. So Burchelt just needs to fight some scrub who's trying to make a name for himself, or someone who's going to be out of the boxing game any minute now. Get them dollars while you can. You're like 30-something years old. Like, you don't have much of a career left. Like, these are your glory days. This is going to be it. You're going to be telling your grandchildren, I held the belt for a long time. Not that, hey, I held the belt for a month and Shakur beat me. I don't know. I probably shouldn't say that because he's a big fan of the show. No, he's not. Should we move on?
Let's move on.
All right. So, Boxing News 24/7's Chris Williams reporting that Bob Arum, there's that name. Bob Arum says that Vasyl Lomachenko could face Richard Commey or Devin Haney on December 11th. So my question for you is, who would you rather see Lomachenko fight between Commey and Haney? Or do you have a trick up your sleeve and it's neither one of these guys?
I'd love to throw a curveball in here for this stuff, but if I had to pick between Commey and Haney, I would probably rather see Lomachenko fight Haney. Lomachenko just came back after his loss from Teofimo Lopez, looking like the Lomachenko of those against Nakatani. And he was not he's a kind of a vicious fighter, and he kind of played with him for pretty much the whole fight, right? And that's the Lomachenko that we all know. That's the Lomachenko that I love. So I would definitely rather see him fight Haney. I think that's actually the more risky fight for sure. Richard Commey is the safer bet as far as that goes, even with the power that Commey has, but he still hasn't really been too active since he lost to Teofimo Lopez with that, the knockout in the first or second round. So I think I would rather have him see Devin Haney. I think that's a good fight for both fighters, especially if Lopez is saying that he will not give a rematch to Lomachenko. He beats Haney, he's not really going to have a big reason to not fight Lomachenko again for Lomachenko too. So that's what I would want to see. I want to see Devin Haney fight him.
Yeah, I get the Devin Haney thing. Devin Haney apparently has one of these belts. As Devin Haney tells the story, we'll just pretend this is the WBC. Lomachenko had the WBC regular belt. And Devin Haney claims that Lomachenko ducked him, and instead of forfeiting the title, they gave Lomachenko the franchise title. So he never really won this franchise title. He was awarded a franchise title. Devin Haney was now awarded, or maybe he won the regular belt. That's why these belts don't matter. But so, yeah, I think that the right answer is Haney, but follow me with where I'm going here. Lomachenko just beat Nakatani, who went the distance with Teofimo Lopez. Teofimo Lopez beat Richard Commey, and I think it was like 2 or 4 rounds or something. I I think Lomachenko should fight Richard Commey. I'm not done yet, because after this, if this Gambosis fight actually happens with Lopez, then Lomachenko can go on and fight Gambosis and just go on, and anything you can do, I can do better. Stop ducking me. Let's get it on. Now, if there is already some sort of agreement in place for Lomachenko and Lopez, then forget what I just said. Then none of that stuff matters. But if Lopez is maybe planning on moving up, or maybe just doesn't think Lomachenko has that clout or whatever it is, then it's probably Lomachenko's best interest to collect one of these alphabet titles, get it from Devin Haney, because I think he could beat Devin Haney, and now he has something to bring to the table where like Lopez can't duck him anymore. Any thoughts on that?
I definitely follow you there. You're gonna beat the guys that Lopez has already beat, and you're gonna do it better, and that's gonna make people go, well, why don't you? He's beaten everybody that you beat. Only he did it quicker. He knocked them out, or he did this. So I definitely see that. So that's actually a good argument. Good. I'm gonna drink that. Good.
Yeah, I want to drink to that too. I'll let you drink, and then I'll get to it. Yeah, I'm on point today.
We'll see if you're on point in the next news.
Yeah, no doubt. So moving on to like, I guess, super middleweight news here, or we can call it regular middleweight. Boxing News 24/7's Tim Compton is reporting that Jermall Charlo is ready to face Caleb Plant at 168. I guess to ask, what are your general thoughts on Charlo moving up to fight Caleb Plant at 168?
Well, that's a move, because before this news, I keep forgetting that Charlo's at 160. It just, for whatever reason, it keeps slipping my mind. Like, right, the brothers are only a division away from each other. So for him to say that he's just going to jump up to the next division right away already, and then fight Plant for a belt, obviously definitely a big name fight, the large fight, probably be a pay-per-view, but then to still try to not fight Andre or Triple G at 160, it's interesting. So I think it would be a good fight. I think it would be a really big pay-per-view if he can jump in soon, because Plant and Canelo dropped, is now muerto. Then why not do it now? Get it up, get it in. If you think you can beat him, then more power to you, Charlo. But I think it's going to be way closer, especially considering the Charlo brothers' last couple of fights. They don't really look that great, and I don't know if age is catching up to them, or if it's cockiness or what. But I don't know. It would be a really good fight to watch. That would be an explosive fight to watch, because they really aren't defensive fighters. So.
Yeah, I kind of hear what you're saying there. I also have to mention that, and I've said this before with guys like Gilberto Ramirez, when they aren't looking good at their weight, it could be a sign that they are weight drained, and that the laws of physics or the laws of gravity, some sort of law we can't control, is telling them it's time to move up. Cutting all this weight is not healthy for you. It's nice you want to be at 160, but it's time to go to 168. And as far as, Andrade and Golovkin and some of these other guys go, I mean, those fights just aren't going to happen. We have contractual issues. I mean, the problem with boxing is these television issues. These guys are signed with Fox, and some of these other guys are signed with, DAZN or ESPN. I mean, this is, going back to like wrestling terminology. It's like when Goldberg was at the top of his game, people wanted to see him fight Stone Cold at the top of his game. It's just not going to happen. These guys are on different channels, and they're in different almost leagues. They're all wrestlers, but they're on different channels. That's how this boxing game is working. It's interfering a lot. But we're given what's taken. Does that make sense? Probably not. I'm probably saying that wrong. Too many beers in, but it probably is time for him to move up. If he's not looking good at 160, especially from his last fight against Montiel, it's probably time to move up. PBC is loaded with guys at 168. Plant is one of them. Benavidez is one, and Uzcategui is fighting. There's three names for you. Caleb Truex is still relevant right now. So yeah, you move up to 168. Your brother Jermell, who's not looking too well his last few fights, the last couple years, probably time for him to move up. Errol Spence with the same trainer wants to move up to 154 by next year. So the dominoes will start falling once Jermall moves up. And if he's ready for Plant, and that could be a big fight. You know how I'm against guys moving up, fighting the top guy at the division, but this one I think makes sense. I mean, you got a belt on the line, and I know, look, it sounds like I'm talking out of both ends, but like, go after that belt if you can, because that is something extra. You would really want a Canelo fight. You can do all the jawing. Maybe you can get a Canelo fight if that's what you're really looking for. Any thoughts on that?
We'll see, man. That's interesting. I don't know. Canelo's real picky. Seems to be real picky with who he fights, but he wants big name fights. He wants big payday. Well, I don't even know if he wants big paydays. It's probably big legacy. At this point, it's probably all legacy. So that's what he wants. So I can probably drink to that.
Awesome. And let me tell you this, like we're foreshadowing like a year from now, but if Charlo and Canelo get it on, Charlo's from Houston, have it at Jerry's World, where both guys are going to have heavy crowd favoritism. So I think that would be a big fight. Let's not look too far ahead, but let us wrap up with Brews and News. And one last time, let's drink to that. Cheers to you.
Cheers, buddy.
All right, Filthy Five time. Tonight we are going to break down the 154 division, the junior middleweight or super welterweight as the boxing people call it. Point systems work. Number one gets 10 points. Number two gets 9 points. So on down the line. So we get number 10 spot gets 1 point. I had my list. James had a list. Raider Live had a list. We combined our lists together. Point totals were distributed. And we'll move into our number 5 spot. James, who do we have at number 5 for the junior middleweight division?
All right. At number 5 in the junior middleweight at 154, we have Jarrett Hurd with 18 points. This was actually a surprise to me. I'll tell you that right now. But Raider Live had Jarrett Hurd at number 5. I had Jarrett Hurd at number 8. And Rich, you had Jarrett Hurd at number 2. And I forgot about that until right now. So we are going to pass it to you. Why do you believe Jarrett Hurd is the number 2 contender at 154?
Yeah, so I have to look at this 154 division and just kind of guess who I think would win in a fight. And this one was tough because Jarrett Hurd's last fight was on that Mayweather undercard, the Mayweather-Paul undercard. And he lost to Luis Arias. Keep in mind, that fight not only was at 160, where Jarrett Hurd may have not felt comfortable, but it was also in the rain. I think part of the reason why he lost that fight, when you have to watch your own footing because you might slip and fall and tear your Achilles or something, you're going to fight more cautiously. Yes, I mean, Luis Arias won. He for sure won. There was no judging issues in this fight. He deserved to win that. But had that fight been on regular padding or something else, now I'm throwing excuses, but I think maybe he doesn't belong at 160. Maybe he belongs at 154. And if I look at this 154 list, he's already beaten Erislandy Lara. He's beaten Austin Trout. He's beaten Tony Harrison. Those are a few of the biggest names in this division. I put him at number 2 because he just has the best resume. Who's not number 1?
Interesting. I did not know that Arias fight was in the rain. That was outside?
It was outside and it was raining and they kept on cleaning up the corners and stuff. It was a disaster. It's too bad that had to happen. They shouldn't be having fights in Southern California. Never rains there. Come to Minnesota. Never rains here. So if you're going to have the fight outside, go where there's a drought. Go to Phoenix, go somewhere. But I don't know where that fight was, but they shouldn't have outdoor boxing if there's rain in the forecast.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's interesting. That makes some good points. Definitely some good points. Raider probably agreed with you a little more than I did. Obviously, having him up at 5. I put him at 8 because I think that the guys above him either beat him or give him enough trouble to beat him. Like I just him and another guy in this division, I think they're past it for me. So that's why I have Hurd at 8. Obviously you guys bumped it up as far as that goes. He's definitely not a bad fighter by any means. 26-2 with 16 knockouts. I don't know if he has the same stuff, but I might have to change my rankings a little bit because I did not realize that Arias fight was in the rain. Because I know there was some controversy as far as that goes, but either way, that's what we have at number 5 is Jarrett Hurd with 18 points.
All right, so let's, I guess, move on to number 4 here. James, who as a collective group do we have at number 4?
So
why do you have that smile on your face before I say that? I can't wait.
It's just my face. It's just
okay.
Interesting. I'm just happy to do. I'm just happy to do the filthy 5, right?
Sweet, I'll drink to that.
So at number 4, our general consensus pick is actually with 20 points, Erislandy Lara. So the guy that you just said beat Hurd, or lost to Hurd. Raider had him at number 4. I also had Lara at number 4, and you had him at number 6. So number 5. My bad. Sorry about that. So just one spot down. Since Raider's not here for me to pass to him, I'm going to talk about Erislandy Lara. I think that he's definitely this top 5 division, man. He's been around forever. It seems like he's been around forever, right?
Yeah.
And he's always top talent. He's always, at least for me, he's always top talent. He only has 3 losses. He's 28-3. It's kind of a bummer because he had back in the day, he was touted as such a prospect, like the prospect for a long, long time. And he was still, he's, like I said, he's still a good fighter, man. I don't have any issues with him being up this high. If we look at the resume, that makes it a little bit different for sure. But, I don't think he's done. He's lost to Hurd. He's drew against Castano. It seems like everybody draws against Castano. Split decision loss to Alvarez. So I think Lara deserves to be in the top 5. I've got him that high for that reason. But Rich, why did you have Lara the lowest of all of us?
Yeah, I look at this list and, like, don't get me wrong, this 154 division is pretty deep. I could probably go 15 deep in this division. It's a really healthy division right now. And to have Lara at number 5, given his age and his awkward southpaw Cuban, I believe he's a southpaw, but he's got that Cuban style where it's super defensive. In general terms, a boring fighter. This guy is hard to beat. I don't think he has the power some of these other guys in this division have, but he could possibly have the best skills out of everyone in this division. I think he can beat everyone here on points. Now, can he knock anyone out? The guys below him, yeah, I think he can not only beat them on points, but he can knock them guys out. The guys I had ahead of him, I think they win because they can knock Lara out. Now, I don't even know if Lara's been knocked out in his career, but power is what has him lacking from my perspective. And had he had more power, then maybe he moves up. But even speaking of moving up, I'm pretty sure we'll be ranking him at middleweight. He'll be moving up to middleweight sometime in 2022. Anything you want to add before we move to number 3?
Do you think he's going to move up still? You think he's got a chance to move up? I looked up his age because I forgot. I knew he was old. He's 38 years old right now. Yeah. You think he still has stuff? Okay, Cuban, right?
Yeah.
Guillermo Rigondeaux, what's up? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I think they play forever. It seems like they're eternal. Do you think he has enough left in the tank, especially being the style of fighter that he is, to move up in weight for one last hurrah?
Well, for one thing, because he's that defensive southpaw fighter, his body probably hasn't taken the beating that other fighters younger than him have taken. So for one, I think he still has a few miles left. What was the saying I used? Enough oil in the engine? I said something like about a year ago. He has enough oil in the engine, or is something stupid. But
it's gas left in the tank.
Yeah, okay, well,
That's
he has that too. He has that too. Here's the thing. He hasn't been taking a beating. Yeah, he's 38 years old, but there's a difference between being a 38-year-old Lara and being like a 29-year-old somebody who just puts their head and gets smashed and has cuts all over their face. You know, and he does not have that. Now, as far as moving up to 160, which I think is what you're really asking here, a 38-year-old moving up to 160, again, I think it's one of those things where God is telling him he can't make weight anymore, or Father Time is telling him you can't make weight. You have to move up. And I don't think he's failing at 154, but I think he can move up to 160, bring that style with him, and his body won't take the punishment. Now, who could he fight at 160? I don't know, but I believe there are already some sites that have him ranked as a 160 fighter. So just like Hurd, who, you know, we will probably be talking about him at 160 next year, I think Lara will be talking about him at 160 as well.
Right on.
Should we move on to number 3?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go. Who do you got? Who do we have collectively at number 3 in this Filthy 5 junior middleweight division?
All right. At number 3, we have the Hammer, Erickson Lubin, with 24 points. Not a big surprise here. Raider Live had Erickson Lubin at number 3. I had Erickson Lubin at number 3. And Rich had Erickson Lubin at, you guessed it, number 3. So where does that put him on the list? Number 3. First consensus, you know what? Might as well have a social real quick. Let's have a beer. Perfect time to crack it.
If Raider Live's watching, I don't like him. No, I think he's nailed this list better than both of us right now. Cheers to you, Raider Live. And to you, Jimmy James.
All right. So since we all have a tie across the board, we'll probably toss it. Since I went last time, I'll toss it to you, Rich. Why did you have the Hammer, Erickson Lubin, at number 3?
Look, he had, I think this is the only guy who has, like, Hurd I had at number 2. He fought Charlo. Lubin fought Charlo, got knocked out in like the first 30 seconds or whatever it is of that fight. But since then, he's bounced back. He's beaten like Terrell Gaucher. That was a huge card, like top to bottom. I think Lara was actually on that card. Maybe he fought Austin Trout. I think Austin Trout was for sure on that card. Another, I think Jermell may have been on that. That was a big card back then. Erickson Lubin has clearly bounced back. Again, one of those process of elimination things. I think he has the ability to knock out everyone I have ranked below him. I had Hurd number 2. I think Hurd gives him a challenge. I'd like to see that fight. And if they ever get it on, I predict Hurd wins. But all it would take is for Lubin to win. And Lubin would be ranked number 2 until he gets a bigger name. And we kind of know who that name is. But I'm kind of glad. I think Lubin deserves to be at number 3. This is exactly where he should be, where about a year ago, I think he barely makes the top 5. Why do you have him at 3?
Oh, I've got him at 3. Look, that I thought he was dominant at this division before he fought Charlo, right? He was moving up. If you want to get to the numbers, he was 20, but I don't remember exactly what he was with Charlo, maybe like 19-0 at the time, but he's 24-1 with 17 knockouts, right? His only loss is to Charlo, and that Charlo was a flash knockdown. It was the perfect punch when he leaned in. If you want to talk about the same style punch, you can go back to Canelo hitting Billy Joe Saunders to where he broke his orbital bone. That's like the exact same punch that dropped Erickson Lubin, and he hasn't been stopped since. And in fact, in his last fight, he knocked out Jason Rosario. That's a big name in this division too. So he is definitely. I think that this guy still has more to prove. I don't think he's done. I think he is. I could even put him higher than this. Like, he's in the prime of his life right now in terms of fighting. And if I could see a Charlo rematch, a Jermell Charlo rematch, which probably will never happen, but if I could see that, man, ooh, boy, Charlo, you better watch yourself, because that's going to be dangerous for you, 100%. But I've got Lubin up here because I think he is still going to be a force at 154 for at least the next 3 years. I don't know if he's going to move up. I think he's going to dominate. If he can fight Charlo, cool. If he can't, if Charlo leaves, he's probably going to dominate this division moving forward, as far as that goes for it. So,
when you were talking about how the guy is in his prime and he just like had that one loss, and now that he's gotten over it, it reminds me a lot of Canelo and Mayweather. Mayweather got the best of Canelo when he was pre-primed, or just like beginning to enter that prime. And I think that's what happened with that Charlo Lubin fight. I feel like Charlo got the best of him while Lubin was still young. And now that Lubin has gotten a little older, gained more experience, he's ready to fight Charlo again. And just like you said, we want to see that fight, but we probably won't get it. And if by chance we do get it, I'm sure Charlo would be favored, but don't count Erickson Lubin out. In a rematch like that, do not count Erickson Lubin out. I'd like to move him up, but 3 is where I think he fits. I think, outside of 2 and 1, we all kind of agree. Before we move on, let's do some best of the rest, guys who aren't number 1 and 2 and not 3, 4, and 5. James, I guess just throw some names out there and let's play around with them.
We'll do that, right? So we're just going to pop through the rest. So 6 through 10 real quick. And this, again, is our consensus. So these are the guys that we all had ranked that weren't in the top 5 that ended up being 6 through 10, and in this order, right? So at number 6, we actually had Tony Harrison with 10 points. So just outside. Number 7, J-Rock Julian Williams with 9 points. Real close. Number 8, Danny Swift Garcia at with 8 points. And the reason I have him, well, never mind. Hold on. Let me go keep going for. Number 9 is Jason Rosario, we just mentioned, at number 9 with 8 points as well. The reason I have Danny Swift, the reason I kept him at 8 and 9 is because I did this part of it. Swift's better than Rosario, so I put him up at 8. All right. And at number 10 with 4 points, rounding out the top 10 for us, is actually the Towering Inferno, Sebastian Fundura. So that's who we had. Tony Harrison at 6, Williams, J-Rock at 7, Danny Swift Garcia at 8, Jason Rosario at 9, Sebastian Fundura at 10. So what do you think of those 6 through 10? Is any of those a surprise to you, or does that seem pretty standard as far as what you had for your list?
Well, so at number 6, you said Tony Harrison, and he did not make my top 10, which I like. As soon as you said that, I'm mind blown. I did not have Tony Harrison in there. I don't even know if I want to go through my list, but that's the one. That'd be one that, I think I had him at, if we had, like I said, we can go 15 deep on this one. And I know I had him between 11 and 15. So, and this is a deep division. There's no knock on Tony Harrison. Just because I didn't have him at 6, dude's a pretty good fighter. So I have no beef with that.
So just real quick, you had him at 11. So you were right. Me and Raider Live had Tony Harrison at 6. That's why Tony Harrison is at 6 overall in these standings, is because of me and Raider Live. So
I will say, if there's one more guy, Danny Garcia has not fought at 154 yet. We're kind of foreseeing him. He said he's moving up. My guess is his next fight's going to be at 154. So we had him ranked. I had him where I had him because I think he's a formidable opponent for guys at 154. But you got to prove it before I put you somewhere in the top 5. Had he just pounded somebody, I don't care who it is, I want to see what the guy looks like at 154. And I think I had him at 9, but I have no problem moving Danny Garcia up. I'm a big Danny Garcia fan. I think he gets a lot of flack for some odd reason, but if anything, those are 2 guys I talk about. I just found out Tim Tszyu is related to Costa Tszyu. This is Costa Tszyu's son. I did not know that until about a week ago. And if you guys want to see one of the best knockouts of all time, Costa Tszyu versus Zab Judah. Punch Zab Judah. Zab Judah falls down, stands back up, points to the ref, and falls back down. Costa Tszyu and Zab Judah. Check out that knockout. It's one of the, I don't mean to say funny, but one of the coolest knockouts you'll ever see. All right. Do you want to touch on any? You got to check that out. I wish you could throw a GIF up there. Do you want to touch on anyone before we move on to 2 and 1? Check out Costa Tszyu.
I might have to find that. I did not know that. That's hilarious.
It makes so much sense that Tim Tszyu is getting the credit. He's born into boxing. He's Costa Tszyu's son, and when I think of Costa Tszyu, I think of Zab Judah and that knockout. So yeah, I mentioned Andre Durrell and Uskadegi last week. This week, if we did Jimmy James fight of the week, it would be Costa Tszyu versus Zab Judah. I'll drink to that.
Right on. Yeah, I just wanted to, off this list, there's only one thing I really wanted to touch on, and that was going to be Danny Garcia. We might touch on some other stuff in a little at the end of here, but I keep forgetting, which is terrible. I keep forgetting about Danny Garcia because he's not a bad fighter. He's only lost 3 times in his whole career, right? Like 36-3. Like he is a beast. And those 3 losses, Errol Spence, Sean Porter, Keith Thurman, all decisions.
And all like 6'6". I mean, they were all super close. He may have gotten robbed in all 3 of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, definitely got robbed against Thurman, but either way, like this is a dude who I have no problem putting him up. If you want to know on my list, I had Danny Garcia at number 5, right? So this was boom. I think he's a really good fighter. So it's interesting to see. I keep forgetting that he hasn't fought at this division. So that's credit to you for that tidbit. But yeah, why not, right? But I think Danny Garcia is gonna make a name, especially if a Charlo guy goes out. There's not going to be too many big names for here, so he's going to be a guy that's going to be in top fights at 154, 100%. So
awesome. So should we just go on to number 2? Who do we have at number 2? I have a feeling. Lay it on me.
So at number 2, our general consensus here on Brews and Boxing is actually going to be with 26 points. Brian Castano. Brian Castano is number 2. I had Brian Castano at number 2. Rich had Brian Castano at number 4. And Raider Live had Brian Castano at number 1, which brings them all the way up to number 2 on our list, right? So I'm actually going to flip this a little bit because normally we talk about, whoever has them highest. I want to know why you have Brian Castano at number 4, Rich. That's interesting to me, especially given that last fight against Charlo. So take it away.
Yes. So I thought it was a tough fight with Charlo, but when it went 1 through about 4, even 5, because I had Lara at 5. It was a toss-up between Lara and Castano. Castano had a good fight with Charlo. I thought Charlo won the fight. I know you and Raider Live thought Castano won the fight, which is fine. I'm okay with a draw on this. It is what it is. I would have put Lara at number 5, or I'm sorry, at number 4 ahead of Castano because of that Canelo fight. Because I thought Lara beat Canelo, but that was so long ago. This is a what have you done for me lately world. So I had Castano at 4. I look at him fighting Lubin. I think Lubin beats him. I think Jarrett Hurd beats him. And my opinion, I had Charlo beating him. Outside of that, Castano whooped up Teixeira. That's all he has on his resume. Go out and beat J-Rock and Rosario and maybe Danny Garcia. Those are 3 guys on the PBC. And if Castano is with the PBC, which I'm not sure, I think he's one of them independent fighters who can go from because I think his fight with Teixeira was on DAZN. Maybe he goes back to DAZN and fights, someone on DAZN. But right now, if you are with the PBC, you got 3 fights you can make. You beat those guys, and I have no problem moving you up a little bit at least. But right now, I don't think he beats Hurd and Lubin, so I had him at 4.
Interesting. That's super interesting. So you want to talk like you want to talk about Castano and who he's got, right? Like, he has no losses. He has 2 draws. I definitely think Castano won in the Charlo fight. I'm not upset with the draw because it definitely could have been a draw. I thought he knocked him down in one of the early rounds. We ain't got to go and rehash that. But his other draw is against Erislandy Lara. That's huge as far as I'm concerned, because that was 2 years ago. So that wasn't recent at all. So I think Castano is a heck of a lot better than people realize. He definitely has flaws in his game, 100%. But this man, just with the fact of what he did against Charlo, for me anyway, and how he really handled Teixeira. He handles larger fighters 5-6 inches taller than him with absolutely no problem whatsoever, which is super. It's odd, right? It's super odd. It's like a Sean Porter type deal where he doesn't, like, the height doesn't matter. It's how do you box, and Castano's got it, right? At least that's how I feel. So I definitely have Castano where he put him at 2. I don't think I'd put him lower. I know what I just said about Lubin and Charlo.
I'm just gonna ask you. I just gonna throw
what
it to
I
you.
just said about that, but I think Castano's. I think that would be a man. If I gotta go, I might have to go back. I go back. That's probably a better fight. I want to see Lubin fight Charlo just because I want him to get revenge, but Lubin Castano would probably just be fireworks, man. That would be nonstop action where you would just edge of your seat thriller, right? Thriller. But that's probably all I got to say about that. Man. That's what I got at number 2.
And like, in a general sense, I agree with you, because I think come around, who knows when we redo this division. It's not going to be till 2022, but by the time we do it, I don't think we're going to see Charlo here. I don't think we're going to see Hurd here. I think it's going to be Lubin and Castano, number 1 and 2. And whenever I think the 2 of them are headed for a battle 2022. I don't think either one are going to have a choice. They're going to have to duke it out because everybody else is going to move out of that division. They are going to be the consensus 1s and 2s across every website, Ring Magazine, ESPN, you name it. They're going to be number 1 and 2. They're going to get it on next year. I have no doubt about that. And I'm excited for it. I think you're right. That's going to make a better fight than probably the Charlo and Lubin. So do we move on to number 1? Anything to add before we move on to drum roll, please?
No, let's just go, right?
All right, let's bring it on.
If you guys haven't guessed it yet, our number 1 consensus pick by a landslide, by a little bit, is going to be Jamel Charlo. Sorry, Jermell Charlo. I can't even believe I just messed that up. Jermell Charlo with 29 points. Radar Live had Jermell at number 2. James and Rich, we both had Jermell Charlo at number 1. Rich, I'll probably let you just take it away. I don't have much to say about this at all. We just touched base on this before. I still think he's number 1 in the division, but let's hear where you got him.
Yeah, I mean, he beat Rosario with that shot. Beat Rosario. He beat Austin Trout, who knows how long ago. Erickson Lubin's the big one he beat. Even going way back when, he beat Gabe Rosado. I mean, the dude is taking on all comers. And his only loss to Harrison was eventually avenged. And even in that loss, I thought it was about a 6-6. James, you were at my place watching it. I was pretty wasted. I was like talking. I don't even remember watching that fight, but I remember thinking Tony Harrison is getting the best of him. But this is boxing. They're going to give it to Charlo. but the right guy won that fight. That first fight, I gotta say, I wasn't paying close attention, but from what I saw, I thought Harrison was winning. Harrison got the nod. I thought he deserved it. But Charlo learned, and if that was like a 18-round fight, I don't know how to put it, but there was a rematch. Charlo knocked him out in the rematch. It wasn't even close. Charlo at number 1 for me.
Fair enough. He knocked him out in the rematch in the 11th round, so it did go very far into the thing. But yes, Tony Harrison definitely beat Charlo the first time. He just played down to his opponents. I think that's, if there's any knock that I have on Charlo, is he literally plays down to his opponents, right? He doesn't, what he gives, what he can do, and sometimes he just doesn't show up, right? I don't know if it's a mental thing or what, but either way, I mean, I don't have too much else to say about that. 34-1-1, one draw, lost that one time to Harrison, which he avenged. He's still number 1 in this division right now, even with my opinion with Castano beating him. If it would have been official, probably would have flipped it, but not official. So until you take down the Lion, it's kind of how it rolls, right?
Yeah, even if I don't know how much, I know we're running out of time here, but like I didn't carefully or closely score the Charlo Castano fight. I based my opinion off of Steve Farhood's scorecard. And again, Steve, to recap, Steve Farhood had the fight scored at 114, a draw, with Castano winning the first round. In my book, I had Charlo winning the first round, so I would have it 115-113. So, maybe Farhood had a round wrong somewhere in there, but I thought it was a close fight. I'm not mad at a draw. I wouldn't even be mad at Castano victory. Just like you said, had that decision been reversed, maybe I would have Castano at number 1. Definitely not at number 4.
Fair enough.
All right, James. I think we've spent about close to an hour together. I'm sure you're as sick of me as I'm sick of you. Let's have a little drink and move on with the show, unless you got anything to add.
One thing real quick. All right. One thing real quick. So there's only there's 4 names that weren't on those top 10. I just want to touch real quick. I'm talking like 30 seconds on these guys, right? So number 11, overall consensus, we had Tim Tszyu, who you already stated. At number 12, we had Israel Madrimov, the Dream. Number 13, Magomed Karabov. And number 14, which you were the only one who had him ranked, was Terrell Gusha. That was not how I say his name. What?
Goucher.
Way off. I was way
or
off.
Goucher, one of the two. Yeah.
So either way, like, I guess for me, I just want to touch base real quick, because you actually had Israel Madrimov, the Dream, the guy that I've been scouting for a while. You had him in the top 10. I want to know real quick, because I didn't. I had him at 12. I want to know why do you have him in the top 10, given he's only 7-0 with 5 knockouts?
Because he has every tool as advertised. When you had him ranked way back when, I thought you were a little, not crazy, but maybe you were hung up on someone who was maybe getting all hype, maybe all, I hate the steak sizzle thing, but he may have been all sizzle. But when I watched him fight, maybe a month later, that guy has got real skills. He has defense, he has offense, he has power. And he has no fear. I don't think he's afraid to get hit in the face, and he will hit you right back with all that he's got. I think he can beat a lot of these guys, maybe even every single one of them. I had him at 8 because he hasn't fought anyone. He hasn't really beaten a big name. So until you step into the ring with a very high-ranked top contender, that's where I'm going to put you. And let me tell you, I don't think other websites are giving him the credit he deserves. And I think it's because he doesn't have the big names on his record yet. Does that make sense?
100%, man. He hasn't fought anybody. His last fight, we can even talk about. I mean, we talked about that in a later show that it was, he wasn't a knockdown, right? All that mumbo jumbo and all that crap. But yeah, I mean, I still think I agree with that. Hardcore. I was just curious because I had him lower and you had him higher, and I was kind of super surprised that you had him in the top 10. So I really wanted to know why you had him in the top 10.
Yeah, he'll probably be in the top 5 2022 when this division has shuffled around. He'll be in this division for the next couple years, I think.
Right on. Yeah, I'm gonna guess real quick. Last thing, I think Sebastian Fundora. I know we had him at number 10. I know he wasn't on our outcast board, but I think the Towering Inferno, if he stays at 154, is going to be a fighter that is a difficult fight for a lot of people. I don't think he's going to stay at this weight class. I think he's going to end up moving. He's just too tall. He's like 6'4" at 154, which is ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. So he's going to have to move up to 160 and be dominant at some of these other weights. But I think that Fundora, if he stays here, is going to be trouble for almost anyone in this division as far as that goes. But I just want to touch base on 2 future stars to watch for: Sebastian Fundora, Israel Madrimov. Those are 2 big names. Wait for it. They are going to increase in the next couple of years. You heard it here, folks, on Brews and Boxing.
I will drink to that, man. Good call. All right, that'll do it for us this week. Good show with you. Raider Live, we miss you. Judge, before we call it quits, where can they watch us if they're listening to us? And if they're listening to us, bang, 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 where can they watch us?
Well, if you're listening to us and you want to watch us, you can go to YouTube/Brews and Boxing. If you are watching us and don't want to look at us anymore and want to just listen to our beautiful voices, you can go to any major podcast site and just type in Brews and Boxing.
Sounds good. Yeah, I guess on one last note, usually I talk some nonsense about the Lakers. I talk nonsense about the Yankees, but lost someone important in my life, my Uncle Dean in New York. I have so many pleasant memories and so many good stories I wish I could share. Uncle Dean, I'll miss you. I'll drink to you. Thanks for watching, everyone. Be sure to tune in next week. We're hopefully going to have a little game show. I got a little something in mind, and should be a fun time. So for Judge Jimmy James and for Raider Live, I've been your hostess with the mostest, Filthy Rich, and thanks for watching. See you next week.